Admiral Park's dark eyes reflected the harsh blue glow of the main screen as the alien message ended. The command center fell silent. 20 of Earth's top military and political leaders sat frozen, processing what they had just witnessed. "Play it again," Park ordered, her voice steady despite the anger building inside her. The alien reappeared on screen. Its body resembled a mantis crossed with a lobster, standing upright on 4 legs with 2 arm-like appendages that moved with unsettling precision. The translator converted its clicks and chirps into flat, emotionless English. "Humans, your species has been assessed and found lacking." Park studied the alien's movements more carefully this time. The way it gestured with those strange limbs, the rhythmic clicking of its mouthparts. Was that body language? Arrogance? Disgust? The translation software couldn't capture those nuances. Defense Minister Lee broke the silence first. "They'd been watching us for years, studying us, all without our knowledge. And now they've put up a blockade around our entire solar system," added Dr. Han, the civilian scientist who had first detected the alien signals 18 months ago. "The Vexari ships destroyed 3 of our deep space probes yesterday, without warning." Park nodded. "Because to them, we're animals in a zoo, specimens to be contained." On the screen, the alien displayed Earth's military bases, naval fleets, and satellite networks. Each image was annotated with strange symbols that the translator converted to terms like primitive, inefficient, and laughably vulnerable. UN Secretary Kang stood up, her face pale. "We extended an invitation to meet as equals. We shared our history, our art, our science, everything they asked for. And this is their response." "Not everything," Park said quietly. The others turned to her. "We didn't share everything," she repeated, louder this time. Minister Lee's eyes narrowed. "Admiral, this is not the time to." "This is exactly the time," Park cut him off. She pressed a button on her wrist device, and the room's security system activated. A soft hum filled the air as anti-surveillance measures engage. "What I'm about to tell you is classified beyond top secret. Only 6 people on Earth know the full scope of what I'm about to share." Secretary Kang looked alarmed. "Admiral, whatever you're suggesting." "I'm not suggesting anything," Park interrupted again. "I'm telling you that we have options they don't know about." Dr. Han leaned forward. "What kind of options?" Park took a deep breath. 15 years ago, when our long-range telescopes first detected potential signs of alien technology, a decision was made. A small group of nations pooled resources to create a shadow program, something completely off the books. "By off the books, you mean," Minister Lee began. "I mean no digital footprint, no satellite imagery, no electronic communications that could be intercepted. We used old methods, paper plans, verbal orders, facilities built under other projects." Park's voice gained strength as she spoke. "We created a parallel space program hidden from our own people, let alone any watching aliens." The room erupted in shocked murmurs and objections. "That's impossible. You had no authority. How could you hide something of that magnitude?" Park waited for the outcry to subside. "We did what was necessary to protect humanity." The project was compartmentalized across 6 sites worldwide. Each site only knew their piece of the puzzle. We used the ocean to hide our work, underwater assembly facilities disguised as deep-sea research stations. Dr. Han's scientific curiosity overcame his shock. "What did you build?" "A fleet," Park answered simply. "Small but powerful. 6 vessels built with technology decades ahead of anything in our public space program." "That's absurd," Minister Lee scoffed. "We can barely reach Mars with our best rockets. You expect us to believe you built secret starships?" Park pulled up a secure tablet and entered a complex code. A 3-dimensional hologram appeared above the table, showing a sleek vessel unlike any spacecraft they had seen before. "This is the Nighthawk, our prototype," she explained. It uses propulsion systems and materials developed in complete isolation from our normal scientific community. The breakthroughs came because we approached the problems differently, knowing we might face technologically superior aliens someday. Secretary Kang studied the hologram. Even if this exists, how could it possibly stand against aliens advanced enough to cross between stars? Because we built it specifically to counter their advantages, Park replied. Their scanning technology looks for certain signatures: energy emissions, radiation, heat. Our ships produce none of these in detectable amounts. They're invisible to their sensors. Stealth ships, Dr. Han whispered, his scientific mind already processing the implications. Park nodded. More than that, we studied their communications from the moment we detected them. We've broken many of their encryption protocols. We understand their technology better than they could possibly imagine. And you kept this from the world's governments? Lee demanded. From most of them, yes. The risk of exposure was too great. Park's gaze swept the room. The Vexari have been watching us for decades. Any unusual project, any unexplained budget item, any strange construction, they would have noticed. Our greatest advantage was their arrogance. They think they know everything about us. Park replayed the alien's mocking message once more, but now she watched the faces around the table. Shock gave way to understanding, and then to something else. Hope. How quickly can your ships deploy? Secretary Kang asked. They're already in position, Park replied. Hidden in the asteroid belt, powered down to avoid detection. One command from me, and they activate. Minister Lee still looked skeptical. Even if these ships exist, what exactly do you plan to do? 6 vessels against an alien armada. We won't attack them directly, Park explained, but we can demonstrate that their assessment of us was wrong. We can show them that quarantining humanity is a mistake. Dr. Han nodded slowly. A message, but not with words this time. Exactly, Park agreed. The Vexari respect only strength and technological prowess. So we'll show them both. She turned back to the main screen, where the alien's mocking message had paused on the final frame. A picture of Earth labeled with the Vexari word for primitive. They think they know everything about us, Park repeated, a thin smile forming on her lips. That will be their undoing. The submarine descended through the dark waters of the Pacific, its hull creaking under the pressure. Admiral Park sat quietly in the command section, watching through the viewport as fish and other sea creatures scattered in the vessel's wake. Even after 15 years, this journey still filled her with a mix of pride and unease. 2,000 feet below the surface, where sunlight could not reach, lay humanity's greatest secret. Far from the prying eyes of satellites, drones, or alien scanners, Project Phantom had operated in perfect obscurity since its inception. 5 minutes to docking, Admiral, the pilot announced. Park nodded. The ocean had been humanity's ally in this endeavor. The Vexari, with their advanced scanning technology, had mapped every inch of Earth's surface, even penetrated several hundred feet into the crust and sea. But they had not expected humans to build an entire facility at such crushing depths. Lights appeared in the darkness ahead, a pattern of blue markers guiding them to an enormous underwater structure embedded in the side of a seamount. To any passing vessel, the facility would appear as a natural geological formation. Its power systems produced no detectable emissions, drawing energy from the temperature differences in the ocean itself. The submarine slowed as massive doors slid open, revealing a docking bay large enough to accommodate several vessels its size. Water drained from the chamber as they entered, and soon the submarine settled onto a dry platform. Park was the first to exit, greeted by Dr. Kim and a small team of engineers. They wore simple uniforms with no insignia or markings. "Welcome back, Admiral," Dr. Kim said, bowing slightly. "The team is ready for your briefing." "How are our pilots?" Park asked as they walked through the facility's main corridor. "Eager," Kim replied with a small smile. 3 months of watching aliens mock us has not been good for morale. The facility hummed with quiet efficiency. Unlike the bright, sterile environments of public space agencies, Phantom Base was designed for functionality rather than appearance. Exposed conduits ran along walls, and the lighting was kept low to conserve energy. About 200 people lived and worked here, each having sworn an oath that effectively removed them from the outside world. They'd reached the central chamber, where 30 key personnel had gathered around a circular platform. These men and women had not seen the sun in months, some in years. Their faces showed the strain of their secret burden, but also determination. At ease, Park said as they stood at attention, "What I'm about to share stays in this room." She nodded to Dr. Kim, who activated the holographic display in the center of the platform. 6 sleek vessels appeared, rotating slowly to show their design from all angles. "These are the fruits of Project Phantom," Park said, looking at the assembled team. "For 15 years, you and your predecessors have worked in absolute secrecy to create Earth's hidden defense. While our public space program struggled with rockets and fuel efficiency, you built vessels that could match anything the stars might send our way." The holograms shifted to show internal schematics of the ships. "Our visitors think they've scanned all our capabilities," Park continued. "They have no idea about Phantom." Dr. Kim stepped forward. "The Vexari scanning technology cannot detect our stealth fleet," she explained, highlighting sections of the ship's hulls. "The metamaterials we developed absorb their scanning waves rather than reflecting them. No heat signature, no electromagnetic emissions, no propulsion exhaust. To their sensors, our ships simply do not exist." A murmur of pride rippled through the audience. One of the engineers raised her hand. "Admiral, what about their blockade? They've destroyed every conventional satellite and probe we've sent beyond lunar orbit." "Because they were looking for them," Park replied. "Our conventional technology operates on principles the Vexari expect and understand. But Phantom ships use quantum entanglement for communication, no detectable signals. Their power systems draw energy from what we call vacuum fluctuations, what some scientists use to call zero-point energy. No fuel, no exhaust. Most importantly," Dr. Kim added, "our ships were never built in any facility the Vexari could observe. Every component was manufactured down here or in similar facilities. No supply chain to track, no unusual resource allocation to notice. When we launched them, one by one over the past decade, we did so from underwater, emerging only when the Vexari satellites were on the far side of their orbits." Park walked around the display, studying the ship she knew so well. Nighthawk, the prototype. Wraith, with its advanced sensor suite. Spectre, Shadow, Phantom, and Ghost, each with its specialized capabilities, but all invisible to Vexari detection. "Where are they now?" asked a young officer near the back. "Hiding in plain sight," Park answered. "2 are concealed in the asteroid belt. 2 are in high Earth orbit, completely powered down. 1 is actually resting on the lunar surface, covered with moon dust. And 1, our flagship Nighthawk, is shadowing the Vexari command vessel just outside their blockade perimeter." This revelation caused several gasps. "You mean we've already breached their blockade?" the same officer asked, eyes wide. "We never let them establish a complete blockade in the first place," Park corrected him. "Nighthawk was already in position when they arrived. It's been observing their operations, recording their communications, and studying their technology up close." Dr. Kim activated another display, showing data streams collected by the Nighthawk. "We've learned more about Vexari technology in 3 months than we could have in decades of intercepting their long-range communications. Their weapons, their shields, their FTL drive systems. We understand them now. And they understand none of ours," Park added. "The balance is not as uneven as they believe." A tense silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. These men and women had dedicated their lives to a project they could tell no one about, not even their families. Many had been declared dead in carefully staged accidents to explain their disappearances. Now, humanity's fate might rest on their work. "The fleet is ready," Dr. Kim said, answering the unspoken question. We've been preparing for this contingency since we first suspected we weren't alone. Park surveyed the room, meeting the eyes of each person present. In 3 days, we launch Operation Revenant. Prepare your stations. Brief your teams. What we do next will change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. As the meeting dispersed, Park remained by the holographic display, studying the ships that represented Earth's hidden strength. The Vexeri had judged humanity by what they could see, never imagining what might be concealed in the depths. "They think they know us," she whispered to herself. "That's our advantage." The stars shone coldly against the black void of space as 6 human vessels accelerated silently away from Earth. Unlike conventional spacecraft with their blazing engines and radio chatter, these ships moved without leaving any trace of their passage. Their hulls absorbed light rather than reflected it, appearing as nothing more than vague distortions against the starfield, visible only if you knew exactly where to look. On the bridge of the Nighthawk, renamed Phoenix for this mission, Captain Choi watched the tactical display with intense focus. The 20 crew members around her worked with practiced efficiency, their movements economical and precise. They had trained for this moment for years in the underwater facility, running countless simulations of this very operation. "Approaching Vexeri perimeter," reported Lieutenant Moon from the navigation station. "Their patrol vessels are maintaining standard formation." Choi nodded. The Vexeri blockade consisted of 35 warships arranged in a sphere around Earth's solar system. Any conventional ship attempting to pass would be instantly detected and destroyed, as had happened to several early probes. But the Phantom fleet wasn't conventional. "Begin approach sequence," she ordered. "Maintain zero emissions profile." The Phoenix adjusted its course, sliding between the projected sensor ranges of 2 Vexeri cruisers. The ship's systems ran on minimal power, with life support dialed down to levels barely comfortable for the crew. Even their body heat was captured and stored, rather than allowed to radiate into space. "We're through the first layer," Moon announced after 20 tense minutes. Choi allowed herself a small smile. "Signal the fleet to proceed to their designated targets." The 5 other Phantom ships acknowledged with simple data pulses through their quantum entanglement communicators, technology the Vexeri did not possess and could not detect. Each vessel had a specific assignment in Operation Revenant. The Phoenix continued deeper into the heart of the Vexeri fleet, approaching their massive command ship, a vessel nearly a kilometer long that coordinated the entire blockade. From the outside, the alien craft resembled a giant insect with its segmented hull and protruding sensor arrays like antennae. "They have no idea we're here," whispered Lieutenant Ba, the tactical officer. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the Phoenix maneuvered to within 500 meters of the Vexari flagship, close enough to see individual aliens moving behind viewports on its hull. "All vessels report in position," Ba announced after receiving confirmation through their secure channel. The moment had arrived. Choi looked around at her crew, men and women who had sacrificed normal lives to serve on this secret mission. Some had trained in isolation for over a decade for this single operation. "Tactical status?" she asked. "We've mapped all major systems on the 15 primary Vexeri vessels," Bay responded. "Their shield generators, weapon systems, and communication arrays are locked in our targeting computers. EMP warheads are charged and ready." Choi took a deep breath. This was humanity's one chance to change the dynamic with their unwelcome visitors. If they failed, the Vexeri would likely retaliate against Earth itself. "All ships, this is Captain Choi." She spoke clearly into the fleet communication system. "Execute Operation Revenant on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Simultaneously, all 6 Phantom ships launched their specialized EMP warheads, non-destructive weapons designed specifically to overload Vexeri systems without causing physical damage or casualties. Each warhead was programmed to target specific systems based on intelligence gathered during their 3 months of secret observation. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across 15 Vexeri ships, including their command vessel. Lights flickered and died. The massive engines that kept them in formation sputtered and went dark. Their fearsome weapons, capable of destroying entire cities, powered down harmlessly. On the Phoenix's view screen, Choi watched as the mighty Vexeri command ship drifted helplessly, emergency lights blinking erratically across its hull. Inside, she knew, the alien crew would be frantically trying to restore power and understand what had happened. All targets neutralized, Bay reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. No defensive countermeasures detected. No distress signals sent. The operation is a complete success, Captain. A cheer started to rise from the crew, but Choi silenced it with a raised hand. This is only Phase 1, she reminded them. Prepare for Phase 2. She straightened her uniform and moved to the center of the bridge. Disengage stealth systems. Power up the main reactor. Lieutenant Moon, position us directly in front of the Vexeri command vessel's bridge section. The Phoenix shimmered into visibility as its metamaterial hull switched configurations. The ship's running lights came on, illuminating its sleek form against the blackness of space. To the Vexeri, it would appear as if the human vessel had materialized from nowhere. We're in position, Captain, Moon reported. They can see us now. Open a channel to the Vexeri flagship, Choi ordered. All frequencies, all languages they might understand. The communications officer worked his console. Channel open, Captain. They're receiving. Choi faced the view screen, where she could now see the Vexeri bridge through their large forward viewport. Alien figures moved in obvious distress, their insectoid forms rushing from station to station. One larger figure, likely the commander, stood at the center, its compound eyes now fixed on the human ship that had appeared before them. This is Captain Choi of Earth's Phantom Fleet, she said, her voice level despite the satisfaction she felt. Your blockade has been neutralized without a single casualty. We could have destroyed your ships, but unlike you, we seek understanding, not domination. She paused to let her words sink in. On the screen, she could see the Vexeri commander's reactions, the subtle shifts in posture that their xenologists had determined indicated shock and disbelief. For 3 months, you have held our planet hostage, Choi continued. You claimed we were primitive, unworthy of respect or consideration. Today we have demonstrated otherwise. Your sensors did not detect our approach. Your defenses could not stop us. Your communications cannot call for help. Yet you remain unharmed, a courtesy you did not extend to our exploratory vessels. The Vexeri commander made a series of quick gestures to someone off-screen. Choi suspected they were trying to restore weapon systems. Don't bother, she said. Your ships will remain disabled for the next 6 hours. When systems are restored, you will find that your weapons will remain offline, a precaution we've taken to ensure peaceful dialogue. We stand ready to negotiate as equals, not as specimens in your zoo. The choice is yours. Continue this pointless blockade at your own risk, or engage with humanity as the partners we are prepared to be. The Vexeri commander stepped closer to their viewport, its alien features unreadable to human eyes. But its next action spoke volumes. It placed 2 upper limbs together in what their xenocultural experts had identified as a gesture of acknowledgement. Choi nodded in return. We await your response. As the Phoenix maintained position before the disabled Vexeri flagship, the other 5 Phantom ships remained invisible, weapons ready if needed. In Earth's hidden command center, Admiral Park watched the transmission with grim satisfaction. The balance of power had shifted in a single bloodless stroke. Now the real work would begin. The Grand Marshal of the Vexeri Dominion paced across the polished black floor of the High Command Chamber. His 8-foot frame cast long shadows in the dim red lighting. 4 segmented arms clicked nervously against his armored thorax as he moved. The chamber, normally filled with the quiet hum of advanced technology, now echoed with shouts and frantic chittering. Play it again, he ordered. The central holographic display activated once more, showing the human vessel appearing seemingly from nowhere before their disabled flagship. The human female, this Captain Choi, delivering her message with calm assurance. The humiliation of it burned in the Grand Marshal's blood. Your blockade has been neutralized without a single casualty. We could have destroyed your ships, but unlike you, we seek understanding, not domination. He gestured sharply, and the recording froze. Explain to me, the Grand Marshal said, his voice dangerously quiet, how primitive apes who burn fossil fuels and fight tribal wars over resources manage to develop technology that our entire scientific community cannot detect. No one spoke. The 5 highest-ranking officials of the Dominion stared at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but at their leader. The Grand Marshal slammed a clawed hand against the control panel. I grant AANS-WERs. The science director stepped forward, his smaller frame trembling visibly. His exoskeleton had paled to a sickly green, a sign of extreme stress among their kind. Great One, we assessed their public technologies. Everything they allowed us to see. He gestured weakly at the data displays. Their space vessels use chemical propellants. Their communications rely on radio waves. Their weapons are kinetic or nuclear, all technologies we mastered thousands of cycles ago. And it never occurred to you they might be concealing their true capabilities. The Grand Marshal's voice dripped with venom. The military commander spoke up. We monitored all their communications. Great One. We mapped every facility on their planet, their military budgets, their research institutions. Everything indicated a species still struggling with the basics of space travel. Yet here we are, the Grand Marshal hissed, pointing at the frozen image of the human ship. Our mighty blockade fleet disabled by an enemy we could not detect. Our command vessel humiliated before the entire crew. Tell me, did your thorough intelligence detect their underwater bases? Did it find their hidden fleet? Silence answered him. The door to the chamber slid open, and the ambassador entered. This was the same official who had delivered the infamous message to Earth 3 months earlier, informing humans of their quarantine. His once proud posture was now hunched in shame. You, the Grand Marshal pointed accusingly, you who spoke to them with such contempt. What do you have to say for yourself? The ambassador's mandibles clicked nervously. Great One, I bring further intelligence. There is something else you should know. The Grand Marshal's compound eyes narrowed. Speak. The humans are broadcasting their stealth technology specifications openly across all channels, the ambassador said hesitantly. Technical schematics, manufacturing processes, material compositions, everything needed to replicate their capabilities. They're sharing it with every species in the conclave. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The implications were catastrophic. The Vexari Dominion had risen to power through technological superiority, subjugating dozens of lesser species by maintaining exclusive control over advanced technologies. Most of those species were technologically capable enough to implement the human designs if given the specifications. Verify this, the Grand Marshal ordered, his voice suddenly hoarse. The science director hurried to a console, his claws clicking rapidly over the controls. Data streams filled the surrounding screens as he accessed the interstellar communication networks. It's true, he confirmed after a moment. The humans are transmitting complete technical packages on all standard frequencies. The data includes manufacturing techniques specifically adapted for each major species in the conclave. They've even included translation guides to ensure nothing is lost in interpretation. The military commander stepped forward. We must destroy Earth immediately, before this technology spreads further. Too late, the science director replied. The transmissions began hours ago. Our analysts estimate that at least 17 subjugated worlds have already received complete data packages. The Arcturians, the Mendasi, the Zoltan Collective. All of them now have the specifications for technology that can render our sensor networks useless. The humans knew exactly what they were doing, the ambassador realized. They didn't just neutralize our blockade. They've undermined our entire strategic position in the galaxy. The Grand Marshal stared at the image of the human captain on the screen. Such a fragile-looking creature. No natural armor, no claws, no biological weapons of any kind. Yet somehow, they had outmaneuvered the greatest military power in known space. "They've studied us," he said slowly. "While we were studying them, they were learning our weaknesses, our arrogance, our reliance on technological superiority." He turned to face his subordinates. "We revealed ourselves to them thinking they were primitive, harmless. We showed them our technology, our capabilities, our methods, everything they needed to develop countermeasures." "What do we do, Great One?" asked the military commander. The Grand Marshal was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Calculate how many of our subject worlds will have this technology within the next cycle." The science director consulted his data. "If the current transmission rate continues, all of them." For the first time in his long life, the Grand Marshal felt fear, cold and unfamiliar, crawling through his system. The Dominion maintained control over 46 species across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Many of these species have been militarily formidable before their subjugation. With stealth technology, they could strike anywhere in Vexari space without warning. "They've outmaneuvered us completely," he whispered. The military commander straightened. "We still have superior firepower. We can launch an immediate attack on Earth, make an example, and fight invisible fleets from 46 rebellious worlds simultaneously." The Grand Marshal cut him off. "No, the humans have changed the equation." He stared at Captain Choi's face on the screen. "They could have destroyed our ships, but they chose not to." "Why?" The ambassador shifted uncomfortably. "She said they seek understanding, not domination. Perhaps they genuinely want peaceful relations. Or perhaps they recognized that leaving us alive but humiliated would be a more devastating blow," the Grand Marshal countered. "Our reputation for invincibility is shattered. Every subjugated species now knows we can be defeated, and they have the tools to do it." He turned toward the window overlooking the capital city of the Vexari homeworld. Millions of his kind lived there, secure in the knowledge of their species' supremacy in the galaxy. How quickly that security could vanish. "Send a message to the human vessel," he ordered. "Inform them that the High Command will meet with their representatives. We will negotiate terms." The officials exchanged shocked glances. "Terms, Great One?" the military commander asked carefully. "Yes," the Grand Marshal replied, still staring out at the city. "Terms for our survival in a galaxy where we are no longer the only predators." As his subordinates hurried to carry out his orders, the Grand Marshal remained at the window, contemplating how a species they had dismissed as primitive had, in a single stroke, fundamentally altered the balance of power throughout known space. The great hall of the Galactic Conclave sparkled with light that reflected off its crystal dome. Beings from over 200 worlds filled the circular chamber, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some floated in special atmosphere bubbles, others stood on multiple legs, while some appeared almost human except for subtle differences in skin color or facial features. Admiral Park adjusted her formal uniform as she waited near the central podium. 1 year had passed since Operation Revenant had changed everything. 1 year since humanity had gone from quarantine primitives to a pivotal force in galactic politics. "Nervous?" asked Captain Choi, who stood beside her. The captain had become something of a legend after her confrontation with the Vexari flagship. "A little," Park admitted. "I never expected to be here." Choi smiled. "None of us did. We built the Phantom Fleet hoping we'd never need to use it." The Conclave Elder, a tall, willowy being with silvery skin, approached the central podium. The chamber fell quiet. "We call this special session to order," the Elder announced, voice melodious despite the translator. "Today we officially welcome the representatives of Earth into full membership of the Galactic Conclave." A wave of soft sounds, the equivalent of applause from dozens of different species, filled the chamber. Park's eyes found the Vexari delegation across the room. Once, they would have occupied the most prominent position, surrounded by representatives from their subject worlds. Now they sat in a small section, their delegation reduced to just 5 members. Their once vast empire had crumbled as world after world claimed independence, protected by the stealth technology Earth had freely shared. The elder gestured toward Park. "Admiral Park of Earth, please address the conclave." Park walked to the podium, feeling the weight of the moment. Behind her stood Captain Choi and Dr. Kim, representing the secret project that had changed humanity's future. Around her waited beings from civilizations thousands of years older than Earth's. "Honored members of the conclave," Park began, her voice steady. "1 year ago, my world stood isolated, judged unworthy of joining this community of worlds. Today, we take our place among you not through conquest or intimidation, but through a demonstration of both our technological capability and our moral choices." She paused, looking around the chamber. "Earth's history is filled with warfare, but also with reconciliation and growth. We learned long ago that true strength lies not in subjugating others, but in building communities where all can flourish. The Vexari thought our diversity was weakness. They didn't realize it was the source of our greatest innovations." Many eyes turned toward the Vexari delegation, whose members shifted uncomfortably. "Humans are not a unified species," Park continued. "We have thousands of languages, hundreds of cultures, countless different perspectives. Throughout our history, this has sometimes led to conflict, but it has also driven us to find solutions that no single viewpoint could discover alone." She gestured to Dr. Kim. "The stealth technology we developed, which we chose to share freely, came from this diversity of thought. One scientist might never have connected ancient principles of light absorption with quantum field manipulation, but a team drawing from different traditions could make that leap." Park touched a control on the podium, and the chamber darkened slightly. Above, a holographic display showed Earth, blue and green and beautiful. When the Vexari blockaded our world, they expected submission. They had encountered many species before who, when faced with superior technology, surrendered their independence. But humans have always been stubborn. A ripple of what might have been laughter moved through the chamber. "We could have used our breakthrough to become the new dominators," Park said, her voice growing serious. "We could have kept the technology to ourselves and become the next empire. Instead, we chose to share it freely, to create balance rather than a new tyranny." The hologram shifted to show the various worlds that had gained independence in the past year. 17 former Vexari subject planets now represented themselves in the conclave. "Some have asked why we acted as we did," Park continued. "The answer is simple. Earth has seen enough empires rise and fall to know that domination never lasts. True progress comes from cooperation, from the free exchange of ideas, from respecting the dignity of all intelligent life." She looked directly at the Vexari delegation. "The Vexari are not our enemies. They were simply following a pattern that has played out countless times in our own history, the belief that technological superiority grants the right to rule. Today, that pattern ends, not just for humans and Vexari, but for all species in this conclave." Park stepped away from the podium and walked across the chamber floor. The move was unexpected, breaking with the formal protocol of the conclave. She stopped directly in front of the Vexari delegation. "Today, we offer partnership instead of retribution," she said, extending her hand toward the Lid Vexari representative. "The stars have room for all of us, but only if we move forward with mutual respect." The chamber fell completely silent. The Vexari representative, who had once been the arrogant ambassador who delivered the quarantine message, rose slowly from his seat. His insectoid features were unreadable to most, but Park had studied their expressions carefully over the past year. He was afraid, not of her personally, but of what this moment represented, the end of one era and the beginning of another. For several long seconds, he remained motionless. Then, with a deliberate movement, he extended one of his upper limbs and placed it carefully against Park's open hand. The gesture spread ripples of sound throughout the chamber. Many of the older conclave members had never seen a Vexari willingly touch a member of another species as an equal. "We accept your offer," the Vexari said, his translator conveying the words in a voice that carried unexpected emotion. "The Dominion has much to learn from Earth." Park nodded. "And we have much to learn from you. Your species navigated the stars when ours was still mastering fire. There is wisdom in your history that could benefit us all." The conclave elder approached them. "This is the beginning of a new chapter in our shared history," they announced. "For too long, the galaxy has been divided between those who dominate and those who are dominated. Perhaps a third path is possible." Throughout the chamber, representatives from dozens of worlds watched in silence, some with hope, others with skepticism, but all recognizing that something profound had changed. As Park returned to her position, Captain Choi leaned close and whispered, "Not bad for a species the Vexari dismissed as primitive apes." Park allowed herself a small smile. Underestimation is a universal weakness, it seems. The formal proceedings continued, but the moment of connection between human and Vexari had already achieved what centuries of conclave regulations had failed to create: a genuine step toward mutual understanding. In the great dome above, the light of distant stars shone down upon the gathered representatives. Among them, humanity now took its place, not as conquerors or subjects, but as architects of a more balanced galaxy, where diversity would be recognized not as weakness, but as the ultimate source of strength. The end.